The second issue, which to me is just as horrible and needs to be discussed, is his consistent berating and insulting and ad hominem attacks, particularly against women. Whether it's
Give me a break.
What do you mean, give me a break? Kristen Welker this week.
It's Kristen.
Caitlin Collins last week.
I worked with Kristen when I worked at the White House.
What do you give me a break?
Say
Have
that
you
you're
no
going up
shame
against
as a woman?
Andrew here with the Veil of Power. Kristen Welker sat down with Trump on Meet the Press and asked one thing: show me the proof. No ambush, no trick question, just proof. Trump called her crooked, called her network crooked, called basically everybody crooked, and stormed out of the interview. Then on CNN, Anna Navarro pointed out Trump's long, well-documented pattern of berating women specifically. Carolyn Sunshine looked her dead in the eye and said, "Give me a break, honey. We all watched the same clip. And let's break down exactly what happened and why that response falls apart the second you look at it closely. Let's get into it."
Trump's monumental meltdown. Tonight, the walls appear to be closing in on the president. His war in Iran is as unpopular as ever as it stretches into its 100th day. Americans are worried about their finances more than ever before, and he's suffered a series of legal losses that are throwing his priorities for a loop. And his own party is now fiercely pushing back on some of his agenda. It all comes to a head during this interview with NBC's Kristen Welker on Meet the Press this weekend. Welker pressed Trump on a number of conspiracy theories, first about January 6th rioters, then the lie that California's election is rigged. But instead of responding with evidence or proof of any kind, Trump resorted to insults and smears before he stormed off altogether.
You know that these elections are rigged. Your network knows that they're rigged. You know that I won an election in a landslide, and I got 94% bad press.
But, Mr. President,
you know why I got that? Because you have no credibility.
But you've never presented evidence that it was rigged. Let's keep talking about, I want to talk about Todd
You
Blanche.
have more evidence. There's more evidence than ever presented.
Let's talk
Your
about...
elections in this country, we're like a third world country. Your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked, and so is ABC, and CBS, and CNN.
But, Mr. President...
You're one-sided crooked networks. All right, let's call it quits, because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Traveled all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
One of the most revealing things about that exchange is that she kept asking for proof. There was no proof being put on the table. And when the president attacks the media, calling them biased, it's usually because they're correcting him on some very obvious falsehoods, like the one that he tried to repeat in that interview, Charles.
Like, the president wants to say this: you have to let me lie without interrupting me. You have to let me lie and not push back on it. And if you don't give me that kind of coverage, then I do not like the media. And the other thing that the president does is that he substitutes himself for the country all the time. I think people have to really be careful when they listen to him, because as an authoritarian thing, when he says that they are the enemy of the country, he really means that they are the enemy of me because they won't let me lie. When he says that people are attacking the country, he really means that they are attacking him. The substitution is a very real thing that happens with Donald Trump in the way that he communicates. And I think everybody needs to pay attention to that.
Why can't Trump take corrections, tough questions? Why can't he put proof on the table of his assertions?
Well, I think you watch the president more than anybody, and I hope everybody at this table would be honest about the fact that the president of the United States takes more tough questions on a daily basis than just about any other president in the modern era. Certainly the last one that we had. Oh, no, I think he should do this two to three times a week. This was a great interview.
Storm out of interviews?
Oh, no, absolutely, because the president's base and most of the country still views the mainstream media as very biased against them. They feel very demonized by the media. They feel very misunderstood. Media. They don't feel like the mainstream media. That wasn't the question I asked.
Why won't he present
to try to
actual proof of the thing that he's claiming?
Can I talk about that? Because that's always the comeback. Where's the evidence?
Yeah, because
the evidence is this.
If you're going to claim fraud, there should be some evidence.
Okay.
That's
the evidence is this. You have a California system that enables fraud to happen easily. You don't have voter ID. You have mass mail-out ballots. You have voter cards.
That's not evidence. That's
time out.
That's just a description of an electoral system.
It's an electoral system that's ripe for fraud.
Ripe for fraud is not fraud.
And then you
that
have
is not fraud.
No, but then you have statistical anomalies where you have Rahman, who was third place, was getting 20% of the vote, and then the vote after the election day, she gets 40% of the vote.
So that's a total speculation is also not true. It's so very infuriating to watch people try to make speculation into proof.
It's
not speculation, that's data.
That is not data.
We're going to spend a whole segment on the California race in just a moment. So we're going to talk through some of the stuff that you're talking about there. But I actually think that we can boil it down much more simply than this. Trump falsely believes that he won the 2020 election, that he lost. When he is challenged on that, he gets upset and he storms out of an interview. Explain that one.
No, they were talking about the mayoral race in California, and he was talking about the fraud there, the rigged election there.
Okay.
That's what they were
It's rigged? You believe it's rigged?
I do believe it's rigged.
Oh, my God. We can wrap this show up.
100% rigged.
We can wrap this show up.
He turned that into talking about his favorite obsession, which is 2020.
What's that?
In that exchange, he also was talking about the election that he lost in 2020.
Well, he talked about the 95%. He also got mad because he has 90%.
What's the explanation for that?
95% negative press coverage. He's sitting there in a negative press interview.
What does press conference have to do with the fact that she asked for proof of fraud?
Here's the thing about the president. When he was candidate Trump and they had the primary and he lost to Ted Cruz, the first thing he said was it was rigged. And he insisted that the state officials change the actual results of that primary. You remember that. And Ted Cruz was very upset by that because he called Ted Cruz a liar. That was 10 years ago. So to characterize his conversation without an understanding of who he has been, I think is unfair to the conversation we're supposed to be having now. He's always done this.
Caroline also suggested that Trump loves taking tough questions, but here is his very real history of not taking tough questions that he doesn't like. Listen.
Your first statement was, are you ready for tough questions?
Are you?
That's no way to talk. It's no way to talk. I think we have enough of an interview here, Hope. Okay, that's enough. Let's go. Let's go.
The only way it's not going to happen again is you have to solve the problem of the presidential rigged election of 2020.
Mr. President, if I'm... One more question.
The woman that you said was a great doctor in that video that you retweeted last night said that masks don't work and there is a cure for COVID-19, both of which health experts say is not true. She's also made videos saying that doctors make medicine using DNA from aliens and that they're trying to create a vaccine to make you immune from becoming religious.
Well, maybe it's the same, maybe it's not.
Last week, well, real quick.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
There's two. Hold on, because I think need to be addressed in the clip that we saw from the Meet the Press interview. The first is him alleging that he didn't lose the 2020 election. Trump and his team filed over 60 challenges in court and lost every single one of them. So there is no evidence that held up in court. That's number one issue. The second issue, which to me is just as horrible and needs to be discussed, is his consistent berating and insulting and ad hominem attacks, particularly against women. Whether it's
Kristen, me a break.
What do you mean give me a break? Kristen Welker this week.
It's Kristen.
Caitlin Collins last
I've
week.
worked with Kristen when I worked at the White House.
Will you give me a break? Have you no shame as a woman that we hear him call them ugly and piggy and crooked and liars and stupid and bad journalists? Have you absolutely no solidarity with women? Oh my God, I can't believe you sit here and tell me to give you a break. But in this network, we hear him tell our journalist that she's not fit to be a journalist because she doesn't smile. How dare you tell me to give you a break? Have some shame.
Why would the president tell a woman that she doesn't smile enough when she's working, asking him a question?
Because he's an equal opportunity offender. And let's not pretend. Let me explain how the game...
Give me another example of him
Let me explain how the game works.
Give me an example of him being equal opportunity.
Let me explain how the game works, because Caitlin got something out of that exchange, too.
Caroline.
The president gets a lot out of having combative exchanges with journalists. His base loves it. His poll, that's why I said he should do 2 to 3 more of these a week. His poll numbers go up. But Caitlin's getting something out of it, too. So many journalists have made their careers in this country off of being combative with President Trump, Caitlin Collins included, Jim Acosta, many former people. It is all part of the game. It is all part of the theater.
It's not a game
But the fact that you guys are going to call this a woman problem, Kristen did one of the toughest interviews I have seen someone do with the president up to date.
And he walked up and left because he couldn't take it.
He didn't push back.
She flew all the way to Wisconsin, left her and went to do her job. No, the guy needs to grow up. He's the president of the United States. He needs to grow up, and instead of walking out, having
How many interviews did Biden do? How many interviews did Biden do?
Biden is back in the White House and discuss it.
The Biden is like a reflex.
Separate conversation.
It's the truth.
Then just
Elsie, you were making a point.
I get it. You want the president to look good.
I get it. You want to talk about 2020. I mean, I'm bringing up Biden.
I actually brought up 2015 when he started beginning the lies about talking about how elections have been stolen. I was just letting you know there's a pattern here that's been 2 years long. That's why I brought that up. But to the point. say right now is that what do you want this nation to gravitate towards? The behavior that we've seen in which you berate women, or behavior in which you learn how to negotiate with someone that you don't agree with, but you don't need to yell or get up and leave out of an interview?
It's one way that you would berate women because apparently
let me ask you this, because I hear you pushing back on LZ and Anna and suggesting that maybe this is somehow about Joe Biden, which it's not. Are you comfortable with Trump being challenged on something and rather than defending his point, just simply storming off of an interview?
He did defend his point. She kept on and on with the same question.
How did he defend it?
What did he defend?
He said that he thought the election was rigged. He answered the question.
And she asked for proof, and he provided
but
what?
It goes back. He talks about what I just said. If you look at the whole election system
What you
in
said didn't make
California,
any sense.
Of course it does.
No, it doesn't make any
listen,
sense.
and
it's not a fact.
I just want to be clear.
It is a fact.
I just want to be clear. We are going to tackle what you were saying about California because there is no proof of what you're saying about California. But in this particular segment, I want to deal with the long-running Trump obsession, which he also brought up in that interview, with his loss in 2020, which he has now tasked the government with trying to validate, even though there's no proof of it. Why is it that when he is challenged on that, he can't answer for it?
Well, look, we know there were, after the fact, we know there were problems in Arizona. We know there were problems in Georgia. We know after investigation.
What were they?
You can't prove that in 45 days.
What were they,
okay?
Hal? It's been 6 years.
What were they?
What were the problems?
There were problems with the voters in Georgia. They found there were voters that were voters that.
There was no problem
How
in
many
Arizona.
fraudulent votes were cast in Georgia? Because I live in Georgia. I want to get you loud.
And I lived in Arizona.
That's a lot. Okay, first of all,
I lived in
we can't have this
Arizona.
conversation. We can't have this conversation. This man just said that there were thousands of
The more you guys yell there's no fraud, the more likely there was fraud.
No, the more that you lie, the more we're going to push back on the fact that you are lying. The Heritage Foundation keeps the largest database on voter fraud.
This is so ridiculous. I want to walk off this.
I got to finish this point. I'm going to finish the point. They keep 30 years. They've tracked 32 elections, 100 million votes. They have found 39 total cases of voter fraud. The Heritage Foundation is absurd. Where's your proof?
Where's your proof?
I just cited my source. What is your source?
I got a question for you.
I just cited because I want to know what your source is.
You said
what is your source? Mine is the
Here's why
Heritage
it's
Foundation.
absurd. Do you think there's no H-1B visa
Where
fraud?
is your source?
Do you think there's no Medicare fraud?
You don't have
Do you think there's no home health care fraud? Can you let me finish?
You're not saying a source.
Guys.
You're not saying a source.
There's fraud all over the federal government. There's fraud all over the states.
Where is your source?
And yet there's no voter fraud?
Are you kidding? The idea that you're sitting here trying to convince us based on no source whatsoever to trust your word and trust the president's word when we know he is lying. And I want to know if you think that was rigged. I don't know if we're sitting here with two election deniers.
Just a second.
Do you think it's rigged as well?
Tell me there's no fraud in anything. Medicare, Medicaid, H-1B visas, nothing.
You have no source, and you're going to get louder and louder, and it's still not going to work.
California won't allow the federal government to
louder and louder, and it's still not going to work because you don't have a single source in your whole body.
Stop talking. Guys, stop talking. Because y'all are talking so loud. But to be honest, Hal, you're not saying anything.
Okay, I think I am. Let's see what the viewers think.
Caroline,
they won't let the federal government even audit the
Hold on a second. Caroline wants to have a quick word, and then we're going to go to
By the way, I would just add, the president has agreed to do a second interview with Kristen Welker, which doesn't surprise me at all. So Kristen will have her own time to, I'm sure, ask him for further evidence. It's like you've been upset about it. Way more than Biden ever did.
We're going to leave that right there. Next for us.
And let's be precise about what actually happened, because the spin came fast and it came organized. Kristen Welker asked Donald Trump for evidence. That was the whole offense. He claimed the elections were rigged. She asked him to back it up, and instead of putting a single fact on the table, he called her crooked, called her network crooked, called every network crooked, and walked out. That is not strength. That is a man who cannot survive one direct follow-up question without blowing up the entire conversation. And remember, this is the same person who supposedly loves tough questions, and the tape says otherwise. And when Hope Hicks was in the room years ago, tough question, that's enough, let's go. When a reporter pressed him on a COVID conspiracy. Okay, thank you everybody, done. The pattern is not new, the pattern is the whole story. Now, watch what Charles Blow identified, because it is the sharpest point in the entire segment. Trump substitutes himself for the country when he says the media is the enemy of the country. He means they are the enemy of him. And when he says people are attacking the country, he means they are attacking him, because they will not let him lie without pushback. So that substitution is not a quirk. It is how authoritarian communication works. The leader and the nation become the same thing in his language. So any criticism of the man gets reframed as an attack on the country itself. Once you see that move, you cannot unsee it, and he does it constantly. Then came the panel defense, and this is where it gets insulting to anyone paying attention. Hal Lambert claimed Trump takes more tough questions than any modern president. In the very same breath, we are shown a supercut of Trump-ending interviews. The second a question lands that he does not like, Carolyn Sunshine claimed he loves these exchanges and should do more of them. Sure, he loves them so much he abandoned this one and left Welker sitting there after she traveled all the way to Wisconsin. You cannot argue a man welcomes hard questions while the footage of him fleeing hard questions is still playing on the screen. But here's the moment that deserves the most attention. Anna Navarro raised something real and specific, that Trump has a documented history of demeaning women, in particular. Piggy, crooked liar, telling a working female journalist she does not smile enough. And Carolyn Sunshine's response was, give me a break. Not a rebuttal, not a counterexample that held up. Just give me a break. As if the pattern is imaginary, as if we have not all heard the words come out of his own mouth on camera. When Navarro pushed, the deflection was that he is an equal opportunity offender, that it is all just part of the game, and that the journalists get something out of it too. So think about what that argument is really doing. It is taking documented, repeated, gendered insults and laundering them into normal political theater, so nobody has to sit with what they actually are. And notice the tactic in the fraud exchange too, because it is the same move in a different costume. When asked for a source, Lambert pointed to a system that is ripe for fraud and statistical anomalies. A feeling that something was off. Ripe for fraud is not fraud. A description is not evidence. Meanwhile, the actual data point on the table went unanswered. The Heritage Foundation, not some liberal group, tracked decades of elections and roughly 100 million votes and found a tiny handful of fraud cases. That is a source that got waved away while the people with no source kept demanding everyone else produce one. So what did this segment really show? A president who treats one direct question as an act of war, a media defense operation built to tell you that what you watched is not what you watched, and a specific ugly pattern of targeting women that gets excused as just how the game is played. Kristen Welker did her job. She stood there, stayed calm, and refused to let a lie pass unchallenged.